Hey guys, Chris here, and I'm a Ukrainian Canadian. Today's December 6th, 2022, and let's get over the news happening in Ukraine, shall we? So, first news today is that another airbase in Russia was hit, this time in Kursk. An oil storage facility was targeted. So, you can see here it is right off the airbase, and so there was multiple videos circulating today with these tanks on fire. And so that's three bases that were hit by the Ukrainian forces in the last 2 days. And if we look on the map, Kursk is right off of Sumy Oblast in Ukraine at about 150 kilometers from the city of Sumy. So relatively close, and it wouldn't be that difficult for a drone to target the airfield. But what really the last few days have been showing to us is that the Ukrainians can be flying these drones without any detection. And the funny thing about it is that the Russians also admitted that this was a Ukrainian drone today. And they also admitted what type of drone was used. And as you can see, it's this one is the Tupolev 141, an old Soviet era drone that was built around the 1970s, 1980s. You can see here, this I think is a modernized version of this Tupolev 141 by the Ukrainian forces, who are the only operators known in the world. And the fact that they were able to fly such an old drone, yet modernized still, but still very old, for hundreds of kilometers and hit some of the most important military targets is really something. And I think that Russia is much weaker with its air defense system than we think they are. And this means that there's definitely going to be way more strikes happening in the next few weeks, especially because I've indicated yesterday that the Ukrainian defense conglomerate Ukroboronprom is developing and building the new generation drones that are supposed to have really massive range and higher payload, and have better stealth capabilities. So you can only imagine with these new drones that are going to come into play in the next few weeks, if not months, maybe, what type of damage they'll be able to make. And they can reach much further as well, all the way up to past the Saratov Oblast. So very interesting to see how that's going to develop. And look at how many airfields Russia has right beside the Ukrainian borders. Like, it's just, very easy to target, and the range is definitely within these new generation drones. So, very good news. In other news, some of you guys might not know what Doge TV is. It's a Russian channel that got essentially had to leave Russia because Putin had, a very firm grip on all these independent channels in the early phase of the war. So they kind of just had no choice but to leave. And Doge set up base in Latvia and they continued their operation. And Doge is known as a more liberal, let's say pro-West channel, but they got their license revoked today by Latvia. And the main reason being is that the last few weeks they have shown their true colors. One of the anchors last week had a backlash because he said on air to his audience, which are usually Russian people, the anchor said that we need to be helping our boys, referring to the boys as the Russian mobilized men, and we need to give our support and our help to our boys. And so obviously this begged the question as to which side is this channel on? Is it on Russia's side or on the democracy side? And so obviously due to the backlash, Doge had to, kick out and fire this anchor. But there was also some other situations where they had to they showed the Crimea as part of Russia as well. So there was a few situations where I think Doge is clearly showing its true colors right now. And now they're being kicked out because of these situations that occurred. But I think, it still doesn't warrant being kicked out per se. But I think what Latvia did is just find an excuse to kick them out because they are a clear danger for Latvia, right? There could be double agents working in this agency, in this news agency. It could be a propaganda machine eventually within Latvia, right? To allow them to continue operating with so many doubts in the air is a huge risk for Latvia. So it's a really good move to kick him out, right? You just had to follow the rules and they didn't. So that's good. And Igor Strelkov is back. So back in Russia, I should say. So there were a few pictures and videos circulating around that he was somewhere in the Donetsk Republic. If you guys don't know who he is, he's the number one terrorist in Europe. He's the one that allowed the downing of the MH17, which killed 300, close to 300 innocent people. He's a terrorist and he's a known terrorist. And he apparently in this post said that he tried to go 3 times to the front lines, and every time he was told to go back by the DNR Republic. So nobody wanted his services. I think it's bullcrap. I think, to be honest, he just wanted to do PR job, kind of indicating to his audience, look, I tried to do everything I could. I wanted to go help, and look, they didn't want my help, so now I'm going back to Moscow. In reality, there is a huge shortage of men, and I'm sure that they would have taken anybody. It doesn't matter if it's, Igor Strelkov or somebody else, like they would have taken him had he had the desire to fight. But he clearly doesn't, because he knows, number one, that he's a terrorist, and he knows, number two, that this is a lost cause, and he's going to die if he's literally going to be in the front line. So all that to say is that, well, he's back in his comfy, Kremlin apartment somewhere in Russia or in Moscow. Unfortunately, Viktor Orban is siding himself more and more on the wrong side of history, and today he vetoed the aid package for Ukraine that was to be given by the European Union. This package would total about $18 billion, but he decided to choose playing hardball and essentially forcing the European Union to seek other alternatives. But from what I'm, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I just did hear a few hours ago that the European Union still went through with that decision with helping Ukraine by giving this $18 billion assistance, no matter, despite Hungary vetoing it. But still, he puts himself in a very bad position here. And the reason I think a lot of people are going to be telling me, why don't we kick out Hungary from European Union? Well, we don't want Hungary to be aligned with Russia, right? What's going to stop Viktor Orban to just say, you don't want me? Well, we're just going to side with Putin and let him bring all his, troops or bases into Hungary. That's something that's like a huge no for the European Union. So they are grudgingly accepting their position right now, Hungary's position, fully knowing that they're kind of an important player too, in the sense that geopolitically they cannot allow Hungary to go pro-Russia or completely pro-Russia. So it's interesting to see that, still to this day, Viktor Orban doesn't see the realities that Russia is going to lose this battle, and that he's never going to be labeled as a good leader, and he's going to start on the wrong side of history. So too bad. So one video I want to show you is, again, more Russian lunacy in the news. And this time they're wondering, why are the Ukrainians fighting for? So 10 months in the war, and the Russians are still asking themselves, why the Ukrainians are still fighting? What is there for them to fight for, right? Well, let's see what they have to say. I'm curious, what are they actually fighting for? And I put this at 0.5 speed because they speak very fast. What are they actually fighting for? What are they fighting for? After all, they didn't consider Donbass their own land. I don't see how that's a point. We always consider Donbass as Ukrainian land. They want to be part of the West, hypothetically, with a question mark. Some young people have been, let's say, stupefied by the propaganda, right? Which has existed for a long time. We know that the propaganda is simply misanthropic and virtually linked to cannibalism. I don't understand what he's trying to say here. Again, cases of this have been recorded on the front, meaning that Ukrainian soldiers have been eating others. They're doing this within some kind of identity, attempting to cut themselves off from the Slavs and their kindred people. So eating others is a way to cut yourself from your heritage. I don't see how that's connected. And say that we're entirely different. Some people, I think they're the majority, are simply, the majority are people who have been involuntarily sucked into it, who were mobilized from some factory and sent to the front. They can't do anything about it. They know that if they turn back, they'll simply be shot like hostages. Yes, I agree. You're totally right. They're like hostages, as most people in Ukraine are, because the mass shootings which are periodically carried out there. Boy, the complete powerlessness of people in the trenches and so on. Anyways, guys, this video is like he's talking to a mirror. All these situations that he referred to, except cannibalism, is what is going on in the Russian army, not the Ukrainian army. The soldiers getting shot at, the terrible conditions that the soldiers need to live in the trenches, the powerlessness of the population to do anything except accepting their mobilization, and them trying to literally eradicate everything that is Ukrainian. This is what's going on. So he's literally talking about what the Russians are doing to Ukrainians, not vice versa. So it's kind of funny. It's like he's talking to a mirror, you know? Anyway, and this video is to show what the Russians are fighting for. What are they fighting for, right? And here we have our answer. It's more bathtubs and chairs and, their loved, beloved washing machines. Here you can see two mobilized soldiers most likely are carrying a bathtub. God knows where they're carrying it. But it seems like they can't go really far with this. So that's pretty much what the Russians are fighting for. They know that they have a golden shot right now to steal, to rape, to loot, to do whatever they want in Ukraine without any repercussions. Without any repercussions. And so this is why some of them are very okay with that, right? They never had a good life in Russia. Let's make a better life in Ukraine, take advantage of the populace, steal, loot, and come back, hopefully alive with all the loot that we gained. This is what the Russians are fighting for. They never believed in some imperialist, ambitions or whatever. They only care about short-term gains. But as we see, often it's met with a very quick death as well. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And that's it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.